going?
Oh, it is going well. Um, Now, this weekend was insane. But after Sunday, I feel like a weight lifted off my shoulders and I feel pretty freaking good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I got a second win, literally in the past 5 minutes, possibly. It's been a really busy time. And for those of you listening, we're recording this on February 4th. So this past weekend, specifically Sunday, February 2nd, 1st. Yeah, February 1st
First.
was the Leo full moon. And it was a doozy. There was a lot going on, especially building up to that. And there was a lot of intensity. And I'm sure it had to do with all of the planets in opposition to the moon, which currently at this moment in time, we have the sun, because we're still in Aquarius season. We have Pluto, Mars, Mercury, and Venus. And so then throwing the moon right in the mix, or I'm sorry, the moon in the mix on the opposite side, which the sun doesn't really do that great in Aquarius, as the sun's natural home is in Leo. And when we think about Leo season, at least in the northern hemisphere, there is like summertime and the heat, the sun is like out and about and it's like nice and you're outside and you're thriving and it's just a really good old time. But bring the sun into Aquarius season in January, it's like the shorter days, it's very cold. The sun generally is covered by clouds, or like there's, especially this winter. This winter is it's a real winter. It's a tough one. So it makes sense that with all of that and the upcoming eclipse energy that we're probably already feeling, all of that to say, this Leo full moon was a memorable one. So if you were feeling it, you're not alone. And we're happy to be on the other side of it. So,
Oh,
yeah.
so happy, so happy. Let me tell you, this Leo full moon pushed, in my opinion, pushed us into really acknowledging the lessons that we need to learn. Like, if there were any lessons that you had just been kind of pushing to the back of your head, or decisions you were making that were like, I really shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway, it
Mm,
came back. It came
yeah.
back so intensely. And let me tell you, I learned my lesson and I'm really, really happy that I'm on the other side of it because I mean, this was I think the exaltation, right? Is that what you said about the moon in Leo? No, you said that about the sun in
The
Aquarius.
sun, it's in exile or detriment.
In
So
Aquarius.
it's like, in Aquarius, it's not a happy home.
And then so yeah, so the sun being in Aquarius and then the moon being essentially the opposite of Aquarius, which is Leo, and everything was just so dramatic, so intense. I
Yeah.
mean, drama. Like, I mean, I can honestly tell you that my experience was insanely dramatic from my end. Like, and it was uncontrollable too. Like I was uncontrollable. And when that passed, I felt such a breath of relief and a weight off my shoulders. And I
Yeah.
won't be making the same mistakes again, I'll tell you
Yeah. I
that.
fully resonate and second all of that from my own experience. So feel free to let us know in the chat or in the comments how your Leo full moon experience was, because wow, it was a big one. So, with that said, we are going to be talking about tarot and dreams again. So, this is our official series on tarot and dreams and moving through the major arcana. So we're going to start at the full, and we're going to go all the way to the world, and we're going to do this essentially once a month, right? So you can expect to have an episode in this series ongoing for the next like 22 months. And so the intro essentially to this series we did 2 episodes ago. So season 2, episode 14, simply named Tarot and Dreams. We discussed basically how we use tarot in reference to our dream practice, our dream work, and how we use different spreads in reference to gathering more insight from the dream or gaining clarity around the specific message that was coming forth. And we also shared some ways in which you can integrate tarot as far as like dream incubation, which I haven't tried yet, but I am definitely going to be trying that soon. So before we get into the details or just into the conversation within itself, we do have a few announcements. And so I am facilitating or teaching a class this Sunday, February 8th, called The Sacred Art of Dream Divination. So essentially, this class, I'm going to focus on dream incubation, is what it really is. So that is getting clear on your intention, asking the quote unquote right questions, how to interpret the message of the dream, because what it is said, at least from my understanding and my own experience, is that the dream will always respond to your question, right? Especially if you're very intentional, you're going to bed with it in your mind. Maybe you journaled, or maybe you're falling asleep with the question in mind. The dream always responds. And it usually, like dreams do, they don't respond in a way that's like easy to like pinpoint, oh, this means this, or this is answering this question directly. It could seem like a whole roundabout way to really connect with the meaning, but there is an answer. There is something there for you, right? And you might have to, go deeper into the dream again and ask another question or ask for clarity and so forth if you're still having challenges. Or you might want to follow that up with the tarot spread. But nonetheless, in this class, I'll share with you my experience, my techniques on how to ask, like connect with your subconscious mind and ask those specific questions and create a practice around dream divination. So that is February 8th online at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And the link to register, get more info is in the description of this video.
The next announcement is Dreamigos, of course. So if you don't already know, Urania and I work with a developing dream app called Dreamigos. That's DreamIgos. This is a really cool dream recording app. There's no AI involved, which is really awesome. So when you have the want or need to upload to something we call the Dreamline, which is the public dream forum on the app, anyone who is answering your dreams will be a dream expert like Urania and I, real people on the app, not AI. Another thing that's really cool about this app is that you have access to not one, but two free dream circles. So you have the dream circle, which is where one of us will host and talk about a topic and essentially teach and guide you. The other dream circle will be a sofa talk. So it's going to be more casual. We all kind of are sitting there having a casual conversation, sharing our dreams, sharing interpretations. Both are really amazing. The next dream circle we have is February 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and it'll be hosted by one of our dream experts, Deb. She'll be talking about love, sex, and exes, which is perfect for the Valentine's Day season.
Juicy, juicy. We've had her on our podcast actually. This was a while ago, like almost, no, not almost. Well, actually, was it a year?
It was last season.
Yeah. It was last season. So I think it was like in the summertime. Nonetheless, she was on twice and we talked about sex and relationship and exes and dreams. So if you kind of want to get a preview of her vibe, you should definitely check out those previous episodes.
Absolutely.
And once we have the link to the dream circle, I'll put it in the description of the video. So look out for that.
Absolutely. And just to add on to that, Deb is great with this topic, sex, loves, and exes. So, after you watch her video with us, you can come over to the Dream Circle where we'll all be in a Zoom chat and you can ask your own personal questions and share your own dreams with guidance and interpretation if there's time at the end of her, conversation. So if you haven't downloaded that today, you can go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and download it. It's free, but you can also choose to be a part of our premium access subscription. And essentially, that's $5 a month, and you have a variety of different resources that come with that. One of the resources is Urania's Dreaming with the Moon guidebook, and I believe you send a personal pamphlet of the dream that or the moon sign that the person
Yeah.
is subscribed with, and it
Yeah.
talks about how to go about dreaming in correlation to the moon
Mhm.
and the moon sign,
Yeah.
which is really cool. I mean, I've seen mine. It's amazing. It's so in depth. I love it. I put out a pamphlet. It is a guidebook on how to essentially turn your inner landscape into a visual piece of art. So turning your dreams into artwork. And there's a bunch of other stuff on there too. So if you are interested in doing the premium subscription, again, that's $5 a month. And we hope to see you around.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's get into tonight's topic. Mary's here. Mary says greetings in the chat. Hi, Mary. Thanks
Hi,
for being
Mary.
here. We missed you. And yeah, anyone else who is watching, feel free to say hello. You don't have to, but we welcome you to engage and ask your questions and share your thoughts. And also, we would love to hear your interpretation of the Fool card. All right, so I'm just going to pull up the standard Rider-Waite-Smith tarot card. So I'm going to share an image of it just to give you an idea. So many of us have seen this before, if you're familiar with tarot, of course. But this is the OG deck, the Rider-Waite-Smith. So I'm just sharing my screen here. Here we are. So, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, this chat, is that we're going to be taking a journey through the major arcana. And the journey through the major arcana is essentially called the Fool's Journey. It's the evolution of one's soul, the experiences, the challenges, the benefits, every important like milestone or growth point within that journey, as it goes from the Fool, which we'll talk about, and then it ends with the World card and then circles back around. So within tarot, the major arcana is basically translates to profound secret, right? So generally in a reading, if you're doing like a tarot reading for yourself or for someone else, you have the major, the minor arcana. The minor means, minor secret or small secret. And basically when you have one of the major arcana cards come through, essentially it has like double the importance, the significance. It basically dominates the reading. And so this is essentially one of the reasons why we decided to focus on the major arcana first, as there is an unfolding story and it's, all sequence. So I'm really excited to deep dive with this and its correlation to the dream space. So we're going to first start with the archetype and just the basic meaning of the Fool. And so, Alexis, do you want to share? Do you want to go ahead and start sharing your symbolism and interpretation of the Fool?
Sure, absolutely. So the first thing we're going to notice is that the number on the card is 0. So this is essentially before the journey even starts, which is why we talked about how this is the hero and the hero's journey. The astrological correspondence is Uranus, and I don't know, did you want to go into that now? Your thought process on that, like since we're there?
Yeah, I guess we can talk about that. So every card has some sort of astrological correspondent, like something that there's the connection there. And you have that in the minor arcana too. And so specifically for the Fool, it's been Uranus has been associated with the Fool. And I have like I see it, but then also I have my own I think
Like
it's more.
reservations
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I do see the connection. So basically, Uranus represents liberation, freedom. There's also this rebellious energy, and that's definitely in the Fool. So I don't really discredit that, but that's another conversation, is more the Aquarius energy. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on Uranus and the Fool?
I think that it aligns pretty well, again, with that freedom, that liberation. That's what the Fool is about. It's trusting the journey itself. It's the infinite potential and possibilities, these new beginnings, a sense of innocence and blank slate and optimism. Also, like a sense of being unprepared, being a little careless, being a little reckless, being a little immature. And, not that I correspond those specifically to Uranus, but when you're approaching freedom, sometimes you can get caught up in the aspect of the self. And you can kind of go about your journey a little careless of what's, around you, what you're stepping into, who you may be approaching, experiencing life with, and what comes along with that. And the reason that I feel like it aligns with like Aquarius and my way, like, because my moon's in Aquarius, and I feel like there's probably more, but there's two like personalities in my brain. I have like the Fool and the Hermit, and they're like consistently like butting heads and trying to like move through life, because I have one side of me that's very like light and airy and trying to enter things with an open mind and trying to experience the full thing without having my previous experiences, my previous heartbreaks, my previous letdowns stand in the way of these new experiences. But then I have this other part of me that's very like, you need to focus on being prepared, being in solitude, being in the dark, being careful, being cautious. And that's where that Fool comes in, because the Fool is not very cautious, the Fool is not very, very prepared. Which again, there's the good aspect of that, and there's the shadow aspect of that, where it can get you into some trouble. But in regards to that, and even the element of air, like, it feels very aligned. I feel
Mhm.
as though the Fool is ungrounded.
Yeah.
I feel like the Fool is totally unstable, totally ungrounded, for better and for worse.
Hmm. Yeah, and that definitely speaks to the connection to Uranus, where Uranus is the planet that it destabilizes the system. It totally is spontaneous energy, disruptive. Whenever there is a transit in reference to Uranus, it's always like, yeah, destabilizing. It's unexpected, which, I mean, with this card, as you see, like, he's literally just about to walk off a cliff. And if you just walk off a cliff, like in the literal sense, that can be completely destabilizing to your physical body, right? And so it's like,
Absolutely.
I'm taking this journey, I'm taking this like as a leap of faith. And I like what Wehrman mentioned, as Wehrman's here. It says, hey ladies, Warren mentions I associated the Fool card with Jupiter and Pisces. And that's interesting too. Walking by faith, blind faith. And so
Yes.
I like that you mentioned that, because a lot of the times, like, this is all up for interpretation, even when it comes to the actual tarot card and the meaning for you itself. And we're going to show our own tarot cards that are not Rider Waite Smith, just to give you different perspectives of how it can come forth and how you can kind of alter in a way the meaning, or see like the same meaning but in a different light. But nonetheless, there is also, as Norman said, there's a naivety about the Fool, right? This innocence and this new beginning, and also this excitement, where you're so excited that you are like blinded by, reality, or just you don't care about the path ahead. You're just in flow with divine energy and with that pure excitement and passion.
There's an
Um,
impulsivity to it too. When you're impulsive, you're not thinking about that long term effect. You're not thinking about how this is going to lay out the path for the future. And it actually kind of reminds me of, you know, before your brain fully develops, that last part of your brain that needs to develop, that is in charge of being able to see how things are going to affect your future, and why, like, it's so important. And I don't know, it this kind of goes hand in hand with the freedom of like turning 21 and having like the world open to you and being able to do whatever you want to do. But because that part of your brain's not fully developed, you make so many bad decisions and so many mistakes, but you have so many stories and you've met so many people and you have so much experience in so many weird ways because of that. So I just, I just think that's so interesting.
And just coming back again to the number zero. So that number zero is infinite potential, infinite possibilities. It can be also be the void. And just like there's so many possibilities, and you're just open to experiencing that basically. So when you see the Fool card in a reading, essentially that's something, especially if it's like the only major arcana card, and you have a lot of other like minor arcana cards. Like when you see the Fool, the way I, at least the way I read, is that like that my focus is drawn into that, and that kind of like sets the undercurrent of the reading, right? So it's like, oh, this is about either initiation, a new beginning, or maybe sometimes, like you said, it could be in a way a shadow point where it's like, wow, I'm not even paying attention. Like maybe I'm ungrounded and I need to kind of focus on the path ahead. And that's why it's good to, obviously you're going to have more cards to give you an indication of what direction it's going in. So we can let's share our cards, and then we'll get more into tarot and dreams specifically.
Do you want to
Okay.
share yours first?
Sure. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin my screen so it'll be bigger. Okay, so this card that I'm about to show you is from my Dream of Nile tarot deck. So it's an Egyptian tarot deck, indie artist. Ooh, what is the name? It is starting to rub off. So I do want to give her a shout out. Let me just see here in
Is
the
it
guide.
in the interpretation book?
Yeah, hopefully. I don't know, actually. I don't think it.
No.
All right, I'll get back to you guys on that. I'm going to be using this deck as a reference point for alternate perspectives. So I will share with you. Yeah, because unfortunately the writing has rubbed off on the,
Yep.
but nonetheless, it's an amazing deck. And you guys know I love my Egyptian vibes, as you can see. So the Fool card in this deck looks like this, right? So
Wow.
keyword is initiation. We do have the number zero. Believe this is Horus. And it's through this whole like death, birth, and life. So they give you the whole cycle here. And let me just see what the interpretation is directly from this. So in addition to initiation, incarnation is another perspective here. It says the moment of incarnation. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it says, here we witness a soul on the brink of incarnating into a human form, poised and ready to experience the wonders of the world. And so it says, stepping into a human form in sacred initiation, it fills us with hope, anticipation, and the mystery. So basically, this is centered around that new life, the new birth, and giving, like basically giving birth to ideas, to life. And what I love is that there's this sacred geometric shape here, which is called the Vesica Pisces, that
Mm-hmm.
helmet shape there, and that is considered to be the womb of creation, right? So the way, I mean, this is like in a sense a lot different than the Fool energy there, as but it's more focused on like the birth, the coming into creation, coming into existence, which is that beginning, right, of like a journey, and not necessarily knowing what to expect. And
Right.
so I just wanted to give that alternate interpretation or perspective of how the Fool can come through, and we'll see these themes show up in dreams as well.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I wanted to touch on too is I feel like something that the Fool represents really strongly is courage. Because in order to move towards a new threshold, like past that threshold, to start a new journey, to start a new career, to start a new relationship, all these things, it's a risk. And you have to have so much courage to step through that threshold and begin. And it can be extremely difficult to begin. So when we get the Fool in a reading, you know, depending on the context of the other cards that are around, I could also see it being this courage card of really honing in and trusting yourself with the next steps of your journey. So my card that I have from my deck, so my deck, I've been using this for a while now. It's called the Deleted World Tarot by Joshua Urban Davis. And here is the, mine is also getting a little beat up, but when you use something a lot, it's kind of just what happens. And the Fool in this deck looks like this. Now, he's definitely dressed more like a jester, like a fool, bright pinks, and there's no cliff, but there's these like rolling hills in the background, this nice loading screen, like loading the next experience, loading your next journey, and then the eyes covered, which to me, you kind of have, you're going in blind when you're the Fool starting your journey. You're going in blind and you have no idea what to expect. So the visualization of this, I love. Even the background, like these like shooting up, whatever you would consider that in the background. It's like, I don't want to say fireworks because that's not exactly what it is, but it's like, it's essentially like sun rays, and it feels like, you know, just this, again, infinite potential and light around it. And, you know, this deck has some pretty interesting interpretations to each of the cards. And I just wanted to read the specific one for this because I think it's really interesting. So this card draws attention to the unseen hierarchies, urging the seeker to recognize their role in shaping our collective destiny. This reminds us that the true power lies in... Oh. My God, I lost my place. The landscape to... The horizon is distant and indistant, suffused with an aura of the unknown and uncanny. Okay, that was weird. Sorry. So I was like lost where I was in that. But no, just the...
Which is perfect for the Fool because it's like, you know, being in the moment, and it can point to like, you know, being lost or just like swept away by the moment too.
Exactly. So but anyway, yeah, so that's the Fool. That's the way the Fool looks in this deck. And it's just, it's so funny too, because this Fool is corresponding with Aquarius specifically. So I just thought that was interesting.
So here's my gripe with like Uranus being the ruler of Aquarius. I mean, so the modern ruler, right? And so the way that works in a sense is that rebelliousness of Aquarius, and the just in its natural state, it destabilizes the system because it's so different and it's so like fringe and just wanting to go with its own unique flow, which is connected to this card here. But in a sense, there's still with Aquarius, there's still some sort of structure, like in my mind, like it's Aquarius is very organized and very like there's a vision, there's a focus, and that's like their driving force. And so the other ruler is Saturn. Saturn's the traditional ruler of Aquarius, and the way I see that come through is that Aquarius is centered, like focused on community, on humanity, on creating a better society, which is the same kind of focus of Capricorn, except that Capricorn has more rigid nature in the sense of like, you know, sticking to traditions or like even moving slowly, where Aquarius just wants to like innovate and create something that is like there's still like a structure and a foundation there, but it's completely different or really evolved from that original space. So I can see its connection to the Fool in that sense of like, going to the beat of its own drum. And I have seen full like imagery with like having a drum. So that's that thing. That's there too.
Right.
Um, one thing I also want to point out, and I'm going to share the screen again just with the picture, because this is something that I tend to focus on too, is that there's this dog here with
Mm-hmm.
the fool, right? The guy, the person. And I tend to see like it depends on what deck you're using. But in this case, if you're using the traditional Rider-Waite Smith, and some people do, have that animal guide in other decks as well. And so if you see this, this also can be an indication of you being supported, you actually being guided. Like maybe you don't, although this dog is also looking up. So I'm like, okay, who's guiding who, right? But nonetheless, it's like the point is that you are divinely guided
Mm-hmm.
and you're not alone on your journey. So I wanted to throw that in there too, because that will maybe be significant in reference to like your dream and your dream experience. And if you're doing a tarot reading in reference to your dreams, that might be something that, will stand out to you, or that's a part of the message too. So I just wanted to share that.
Absolutely. And I just want to add to that, just to the dog in specific. It's interesting because that's often something that's interpreted different depending on the person. Some
Mhm.
people see it as like that fun, friendly companion or guide, where others see it as a guide that expresses warnings and like kind of keeping
Mhm.
you on your path. Like, even if you're not completely aware of it, they're there to kind of stop you from essentially, falling and, getting hurt or whatever it may be. But both under the guise of loyalty.
Mhm.
You have your trust in the universe, but there's still something there that's going to help you stay safe, and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and transition to the card as a dream state, or essentially how the theme of the fools might show up in your dreams. So again, as we spoke, the fool corresponds to initiation, new beginnings, trusting in divine energy, spontaneity, naivety, an unbound energy. You're entering also into unknown territory. So it's likely that if we take the fool's energy in consideration to our dreams and kind of compare it in that way, you would likely see, maybe those experiences showing up in your dreams, and maybe they're showing up in your dreams as specific symbols, such as like a doorway, a literal cliff, a threshold. Or maybe there is an animal guide in your dream, right? So it might be a factor of many different things, but if you start to see these connections, and like maybe you do a reading and you have the full card there, I think at that point you're going to be like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Especially if you see the full card in reference to a dream, it'll make a lot of sense.
Absolutely. And I think it's really, once you become um aware and understanding of the major arcana specifically, um I think you'll be able to trace the archetypes and themes of your dreams a little better too. Like, if you don't know anything about the fool, you may not know what's showing up in your dream as that archetype of the fool. But now that you have an understanding, at least, if you watch this video, you can go about it a little bit easier and have a better understanding of the journey and yourself. And I love that you said, like, I love that you brought up the thresholds. There's a lot of other things that can come through with this. One of the things that I thought was really interesting that I didn't actually think about was the actual act of traveling in the dream. So wandering around, hitchhiking, and specifically without a sense of direction or like a map or any end goal, just a sense of optimism and feeling good, not anxious, but like feeling like you're on the right path, even though you don't know what that path is. That could really represent the archetype of the fool, because that's essentially how they start moving through this new journey, this new beginning, is with that optimism and without knowing, walking into the unknown. Or, speaking of this specifically, a symbol that comes through in my dreams that I'm now realizing is more attached to the fool's archetype in my dream space is the void. So if you guys have been around for a while, if you listen to a lot of the dreams we've shared, something that shows up nonstop is the void, the unknown. And I'm starting to realize that this is a representation of my personal journey as the Fool and what is going to lie ahead of me. And over time, I have really, even if there's a sense of uneasy, I'm not stopping. I'm not fearful. I'm not going away from it. I'm normally going towards it. And I feel like this helps me a lot in my waking space because every moment ahead of where we are is unknown, even if it's seemingly normal. You don't know what's going to happen next. And it's really vital to not be afraid, not just like of big decisions and new things, but also just your day to day. So that's something that I've been relating now since we've been equating this, the tarot to the dreams. That's something that I'm realizing is a symbol definitely showcasing those aspects.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm also thinking about how in the very first episode of this, as you could say, of this series or the intro, we share different practices or the different ways you can use tarot in reference to your dream space or dream work. And one of the methods there was to have a card or maybe like choose a card, right? And sleep with it when you go to bed. And say if you're having challenges with like initiating some sort of change in your life, or you feel yourself at that threshold but you're afraid to take that leap of faith, you can, through your actions, through your intention, you can, as we talked about in that episode, you can take that tarot card and put it underneath your pillow and maybe journal about it and get some crystals in reference to either support and grounding or something that helps you to open up your level of trust or ability to trust more and to really embrace vulnerability in a sense and not necessarily always having to know what to expect. So that's a good dream practice you could do in reference to any challenges or desires you have in beginning a new journey or trusting in divine flow. Yeah, and some of the emotional tones that can indicate the Fool, because a lot of the times, right, we might not remember exactly what's happening in the dream or the symbols fade away. But we can definitely 9 times out of 10 remember how we felt in the dream. So some of the emotions that correspond to the Fool would be curiosity, freedom, innocence, even like this lightness. So Alexis, when you mention the light behind in that card, behind the figure, and there's just like this lightness, that's the energy that I'm even feeling from him, like the way he's like almost dancing off the cliff. So there's this light energy, and just like the airy energy is what you mentioned. And I really can sense that being a strong emotion within the Fool type dreams, where there's a carefree energy, there's a lightness, and just like maybe dancing on air.
Yeah, I mean, I would equate that too to maybe even like a childlike wonder and feeling unburdened, and the way this could show up, with this emotion is like flying, floating. We just talked about flying, floating in the air, dancing in the dream, laughing, having a good time, running around, doing the things that make you feel like a child within the dream space can be a reflection of that Fool energy and really connecting with that innocence. And even the way you could interpret that is that you need to lighten up. You need to, in your life, back off of these serious tones. This is the way of moving through life. You might be really holding yourself back and taking everything too seriously and maybe even being afraid of a lot of things. So you're not doing as much as you would want to do. This could be a reflection of you needing to find that child like wonder and happiness within yourself in the waking space, reflected in your dream space.
Yeah. And I like what you mentioned about the childlike energy, because children, and I know I have a 6-year-old, and it's like the hardest thing right now is like their sense of like spatial awareness, or like just like don't jump off of there, because like, you know, she's jumping off the couch and she's falling on purpose on her body, and there's like, you know, objects around, like sharp objects, or like, you know, the corners of tables and such. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is wild. And that's literally the energy of the Fool, where it's like, you know, like she'll jump off of the couch or the bed onto me, and I have to pay attention. I'm like, wow, you have a lot of trust in me, because what if I wasn't paying attention, or you jump on my back and it's like I'm gonna fall to the, like there's just so much. So I love that you brought up that childlike energy, because that's so on point, because they're just having fun. Like they have their, I'm their animal guide, basically. I'm their companion, being like, hey, no, don't do that, or like, come on, let's go this way, and like, good
Yep.
job, right? So I'm like their eyes, I'm their guide, and children just like they're doing their thing. And so yeah, there might be, you know, an invitation to live life a little bit more like that, or if you're like doing a lot of that, maybe it's like, hey, okay, like let's rein it in a little bit and kind of ground ourselves. So that's why it's really good to look at all the elements that are going on, and even the emotions. So you might have those full kind of emotions, but then say if it's an anxious dream, right, in those specific environments or that dream experience, then that can give you an idea of like, maybe, you know, there's something here where that's keeping you feeling anxious or restricted and so forth. And maybe, you know, that's what you are being guided to focus on, to help you embrace this new beginning, or this ability to trust in the divine flow of where you're going. But yeah, no, this was amazing. This was a really good
No,
idea.
it was. And just jumping on the back of that, another aspect that could show up in your dream in oh my god, there was a word. Another way this could show up in your dream is when you are within the dream leaving or walking away from somewhere where you don't feel like you belong. You're stepping into a liminal space of like, I was here, now I'm here, and I need to start going in this direction. Not to say that it's anxiety driven, it may be anxiety driven, but you could feel really okay with leaving the situation and being on your own and adventuring somewhere else because it's not meant for you. And I feel like that's something that occurs in our waking space that could be a reflection of the Fool showing up in the dream space or just in our tarot pool, is that you do need to step away from something. You do need to leave somewhere that you don't feel like you belong anymore, or that you've already shed your skin from, and you're just there. Like, whether it's you don't want to disappoint the people around you, or you're afraid of the risk of leaving, especially when it comes to like a relationship or work. I've been there before where I have overstayed my welcome at a job, and I mean that the job was no longer serving me, and essentially I just needed to get away. But I did feel a sense of like, if I leave, I'm going to abandon a person that I work with, and they're going to have to take on the load and all these other things. And I'm sure the dreams that I was having around that were very much pushing me to leave the situation that I no longer felt comfortable in a sense of like, it's not doing anything for me, it's harming me. Or a relationship where like you just don't feel like it's serving you anymore. Like, that might show up in your dream space or in your tarot card when you're ready to move on to a new journey. And it's, again, that sense of like not feeling scared too, to show up in the dream, I feel like is even more of a push. Like, look, you're doing it here. You're doing it and you're fine here. So you can do it in the waking space too.
Yeah. So bringing this full circle, because I think we did a really good job going deep with it. And I think we already touched on this, but just to bring it full circle, you know, say you have a dream, and it might not even clearly to you be about a new beginning, initiation, trusting, and, you know, your path ahead and so forth. But then you do a tarot reading to get a deeper understanding of your dream, and then you receive the Fool card. So I'm pretty sure, like we touched on this, where there might be an invitation or indication of like taking a leap of faith, trusting in divine energy, And of course, you want to look at the other cards in reference to the Fool. But are there any more points that you might want to add to that, Alexis, that we didn't touch on or in general?
Um, hmm. I do want to say that, we did mention briefly of having a guide show up in the dream as a reflection of, the dog within the card. And I wanted to touch on real quick that that might be anything, but
Mm-hmm.
something significant is going to come through. It's not that you're supposed to be learning something necessarily through logic and understanding of that point, but more so the guide is teaching and pushing you to move forward. So I think really honing in on that full,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel
Yeah.
as though with the tarot major arcana, there's a lot of different ways guides can come in depending on the different cards that come through. But I feel like with the guide for the Fool, it's really that the guide is there to push you forward. And I feel
Mhm.
like that's something to pay attention to. And yeah.
Yeah, that's something it took me a while to really even notice that. And then once I noticed it, and it probably was like another reader or something, but um when I noticed it, it was like that was always there. And I'm like, okay, so how is this animal, how is this guide, speaking to me? Like right now, connecting with it again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like dogs are so important to me in my dreams right now. So I'm like getting really excited about like my dream space tonight because I'm like, oh, I wonder if they're going to show up. So I think we did a really great job on this.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, and I'm sure you, like, I know you just touched on it, but were there any aside from the dog? Do you feel like there are any specific dreams that stick out in your head that you've had that might represent the Fool?
I mean, there are so many right now. Especially I feel like I've been in an initiation journey for a very long time. I mean, just even that symbol, like I said, the Vesica Pisces. I believe it was last year, or maybe it was the year before, but I know I had a few dreams where that was like a major theme, like that sacred shape and sacred geometry. I'm learning is one of those things that actually like also helps me with going deeper within my dreams. And so that shape was showing up a lot for me. And
Yeah,
that's like more of a specific thing, but that is the womb of creation. That is the new beginning. Sorry,
yeah.
once you can continue. I'm muting myself because my child is yelling for me.
No, that's okay.
Background.
No, I just, I remember the Vesca Pisces dream that you had, and I love that that's, because I wouldn't have even thought about that until you pulled up the tarot card with that showing. But that's a great representation of the Fool, showing up in your dream space. But yeah, I completely agree. There are a variety of different things that I've definitely seen that have represented the void, the Fool. And one of the dreams that stick out to me, I believe I had last year. I don't remember exactly when, and I don't think I wrote this down, but it's significant because there was a path that was almost like a cliff, kind of like it wasn't a cliff, but the way that when you see a cliff you can see the bottom, you can see the gravel and everything kind of falling out. Like it was a path, but it looked like that, and everything around it was void, and it was just this one character from a book that I really love moving forward with a lamp in front of me. And we were just walking on this path in the dark void with them just moving me forward. And I felt like that was a very strong indication of just this new beginning, this new journey that I was on, and not knowing what was in front of us aside from the very like specific glow that was maybe didn't even go off more than like 6 inches, so you really didn't know what you were seeing ahead of you, but you were just trusting.
Mm, wow. Yeah. That sounds really powerful in itself. Yeah, and that guiding light energy, like the lightness that resonates.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
I think that once you, and I feel this way now that I really started to study, the Fool and the way it comes through in dreams, and just I feel like I have a better understanding now of just that archetype showing up in my dreams, and I'm really excited to start integrating the rest.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a fun journey. So definitely stay tuned for the next episode in our Tarot and Dream series, where it's going to be focused on the Magician, which is like a favorite card of mine. So I'm really excited to dig deep into that. And this is all going to kind of build on itself as we see like the journey, the soul's journey, and how that is expressed in the dream space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, we'll talk to you later. We'll see you in the next one.
Sweet dreams.
Sweet dreams.